So we are here with Adam Goldstein, founder of Hipmunk, and an old friend of mine. We're here for another Yahoo Tech Mix, which are these periodic interviews I do with interesting CEOs. And to introduce Adam, I believe we have a little video intro. Your life flashing before your eyes.
Adam Goldstein calls himself a full-time travel nerd. You could also call him an entrepreneur, an author, and a CEO. His latest venture is Hipmunk, which wants to become your destination of choice when it comes to choosing choice destinations. Hipmunk is taking on bigger competitors like TripAdvisor, Kayak, and Skyscanner to reinvent the travel search site. This year, the company has raised $20 million in new venture funding. It counts Ashton Kutcher among its other investors. And it's growing fast, striking new deals with Yelp and our own Yahoo travel site. So how is Hipmunk going to beat the big guys? By targeting younger users with mobile-friendly design and the ability to search hotel results by Vice, among other features. Goldstein co-founded the company in 2010, just weeks after graduating from MIT, with Reddit co-founder Steve Huffman. But that wasn't Goldstein's first venture. At just 26, he's already been a published author for a decade, writing a book for David Pogue's Missing Manual series when he was just a teenager.
Yeah, 26. No. So can I just, you'll get a chance to talk, but can I tell
Sure.
this story? So I was doing a book signing, and this 14-year-old kid comes up to me, says, hey, David, I'd love to help write your books. You know, I'm like, tut, little boy, you're 14. And I said, but I'll tell you what, if you find some mistakes in my books, why don't you email them to me? So he started finding mistakes in my books and emailing them to me, and they were all correct, and some of these errors had been in the books for several editions in a row, much to my embarrassment. So I started thinking, wow, this 14-year-old really knows stuff. And then as the deadline approached for this book I was working on, I said, okay, dude, I'm going to give you a writing assignment. I need you to write a sidebar, a little side topic on the corner of the page about HFS journaling, because I don't have time to research it. And he said, sure, and he turned in this sidebar that was written in my voice. I mean, it had jokes and sarcasm, and it was exactly what I would have written had I understood the subject. So suddenly I realized this was no ordinary 14-year-old, and I gradually got to know, it's Adam, of course, and gradually I got to know Adam by email, and then the next thing I knew, I said, you know what, you're only 14, but how would you like to write an entire book in my Missing Manual series by yourself? And I assigned him to write AppleScript, the Missing Manual, which he wrote at a time when he was too young to sign the contract. So, and he did, and it became the best-selling AppleScript book, which it is, as far as I know, to this day.
I don't know that there are many AppleScript books being sold these days, but...
Dude, this is your chance to trumpet your own horn. So he parlayed that magnificent authorship into an internship at Apple, and then MIT, and then actually you had a failed venture in between MIT and Hipmunk.
Yes, that's right. So from my experience writing, I knew that authors have a tough time getting people to come to their events. And so I teamed up with a couple other authors to start a company called Book Tour, which was a way for authors to publicize their speaking events and for readers to figure out when their favorite authors were coming to town. Now, one thing that taught me is that the publishing industry is a horrible place to start a company. Now, there are companies that have made it work, but trying to thread that needle and simultaneously make money was basically impossible. So we folded up the company and all went our separate ways, and now each of us is doing something new that seems to be working better.
All right, so let me introduce Hipmunk to. I do this not because I don't want to see the Apple logo, but because everyone in my family has MacBook Airs. This is how we tell them apart. So suppose I want to book a flight. Of course, Hipmunk is a flight comparison and booking service, right? Mm-hmm. And as soon as we get on the Wi-Fi here, I will demonstrate here what I'm seeing here. So what I used to use was Kayak. So you go like this. I want to go from New York to Las Vegas, and those dates are fine. I search, and this is what I get. Okay, so there's ads over here, and basically I get a list. Okay, now let me show you what Expedia is. Is Expedia the biggest one?
I think Expedia is the biggest for flights, yeah.
Okay, so here's the biggest one. I type in New York to Las Vegas, and in this case,
you're searching flight and hotel combined here.
hey, I'm just a user. This is the user experience. The first thing it's going to ask me is, start by choosing your hotel. I don't want a hotel, I want a flight. So I'll click here, and I can't click it. Okay, so yes, you're telling me that I was supposed to see this fine print up here and do that first. Okay, so when I finally do that, what I get is a list studded with ads. Wait, those are the flights? Are those the flights? I can't even navigate this. Expedia is Microsoft, is it not?
Used to be.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
now they're independent.
Enough said. Okay, so if I go, who owns it now?
They're a public company.
Oh, they spun them off?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's Hipmunk, and you'll see it's a slightly different thing. Okay, so this time I see the flights represented as bar graphs, and if I want to see them in takeoff order, departure order, there they are. That's so much easier to figure out what's happening. They're color-coded by airline. These are layovers here. I can point to one to see the exact time and departure. There are no blinky ads. There's nothing cluttering the sides. And I can say, show me only the non-stops. Okay, there we go, like that. It's just the Appleized version of travel search. It's infinitely better. Why haven't your competitors copied that?
Well, I think that they've got a bunch of users who are used to doing things the old way. You know, when we look at the people who are entering the travel industry for the first time, you know, younger people or people who are, you know, more familiar with technology, they're open to a new way of doing things that's better. But if you've been using one of the existing sites for 10 years, you know, you might not quite get this on the first time. Maybe you've gotten into the habit of clicking flight instead of flight and hotel, and entering your city and ignoring everything else. It's strange to think, but actually there are people like that.
But what about this notation, this bar graph, which is visual and easier to parse than the lists?
Well, that's what I'm saying. So most people find it easier to use by far. But there's a group of people who happen to form the core of the audience of these big travel sites that are used to doing it a particular way.
I see.
So that's what's given us the opportunity to come in and present something better.
I'll just show you one more thing. So these are the different ways you can sort things. Takeoff time, landing, and if you want to know, like frequently I'll have a talk or a meeting and I won't be out till 9, so I can drag this thing here and it'll cut off all the flights before that time. And look, you can search by price, search by duration, or by Agony. What is Agony?
So Agony is our attempt to quantify and to roll up all of the things that might frustrate you about a particular flight. So it's how long is it, how expensive is it, how many connections are there? On the connections, you have to change airports. You know, that's incredibly agonizing, so we punish those. Other sites don't do that. You know, most other sites, you go there, and if the flight that involves an overnight stopover plus a change of airport is $2 cheaper, it's going to show up first because it's the cheapest.
No!
Right? Yeah.
Oh,
Try it.
horrible.
You could probably find some if you searched right now.
Oh,
But,
no, that would be agonizing.
Yeah.
So the original term you used for Agony was something else, wasn't it?
Suckage. Yes, that's when we were prototyping this. That's what we used, and then the day before we launched the site, we realized that probably no reporter would write about that because they would be afraid to use that word in print. At least the legitimate journalists, you know, they probably have rules that prevent that. So we opened the thesaurus and we looked for synonyms for pain, and we found agony. That is exactly the word we need.
Now, you and I have known each other for many years. You used to work on my book series. At the same time, that doesn't get you off in this interview. I intended for this to be hard-hitting and to focus.
Doesn't get you off either, David.
Oh! We'll edit that right out. So I wanted to be sure I asked you some of the tougher questions. So I Googled why I hate Hipmunk. And first of all, it kept autocorrecting to chipmunk. So you'll have to tell me about that. But here's what we get. Here's what we get. Hate your boss? Use Hipmunk. You'd hate ads ruining your travels? Use Hipmunk. why I love Hipmunk. No. All right. How about why I don't like Hipmunk? And you get things like why Hipmunk is the world's best travel site. I mean, you have some hardcore fans.
Yes.
So how's it going? Where are you among in rank among all the travel sites?
So it's going really well. We've grown from nothing to one of the most used comparison sites in the United States in less than 5 years, which is hard.
So it's who are the rivals? Expedia?
Well, it's there are companies that are rivals, but also partners of ours, and then there are companies that are pure rivals. So Kayak, for example, we don't work with them at all. Skyscanner, don't work with them at all. Companies like Expedia, we do work with because they have flight and hotel information that we use. So someone could start their search on Hipmunk, or they could start on Expedia, or they could start on Priceline or any of those, and we work with those companies, but we're also competitors.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah.
And then how do you make money?
So we make money when people book, and we also make money from tasteful ads. We do.
Why? I didn't see the ads. Where are the
Well,
ads?
that's probably because they're that tasteful.
Or ineffective.
Well, we've actually seen the Hipmunk audience is really desirable for advertisers. We've got people who are very familiar with technology. They're usually not looking for just the cheapest thing because that's what our entire experience is about. And the airlines and hotels are so sick of people just cheap. It's hurting their business. It's making them have to charge for everything, including, drinks on the plane. So any site that can help put people in the mindset of, hey, there's more to it than just the cheapest price, they like that and they're willing to pay for that.
I see. So, how is your compensation determined? Is it a percentage of the flight you buy? Is it a fixed, right?
Completely depends, yeah. So we've got different kinds of relationships with different kinds of airlines and travel agencies and hotels. Some of them they pay us for every click that we send them. Some of them pay us for every booking that we send them. Some of them pay us a percentage. Some of them pay us a percentage of profit. I mean, it's all across the board.
So you must have some whole team dedicated to going to these individual airlines?
Individual airlines, hotels, travel agencies. We have more than 100 different connections through our system. So when you do a search on Hipmunk, we're going out and hitting dozens of different companies to get their best rates.
Okay, so tell me some of the anecdotes about, I mean, like you didn't always have all the airlines. You didn't have
That's right.
American for a while, right?
Yeah, I mean, the airlines are really a challenge for everyone in the online travel industry because with all the mergers that have taken place, the airlines feel like they don't need anyone else to help them fill seats.
So they're not interested in these travel sites?
Well, they're not as interested as they were when they were all competing, when there were 8 of them competing for business. Now, really, there are only 4 that have 80+% of the US market. So that's American, which now also owns US Airways, United, which bought Continental, Delta, which bought Northwest, and then Southwest, which bought AirTran. So there's 4.
Wow.
Yeah, that's why fares are so high too, if you've noticed.
Wow.
It's because they don't compete as much. So that's squeezed everyone on the comparison side. And it's not just us, it's also Kayak and Expedia. Everyone else struggles all the time with the airlines, and periodically one of them will say, you know what, to prove our point, we're just gonna stop showing our flights at all for you. And we just have to kind of sit there and wait for them to come to their senses, and then, yeah.
Wow, but didn't you do some kind of clever workaround during that phase?
We always try to find other ways to present the best information we can, whether it's schedule information or information we get from another source. So if it's not directly from the airline, at least we can show that airline's flights through a travel agency or something.
Isn't Southwest? Do you have Southwest?
We don't, and no one does. At least no one does in any sort of official capacity. Periodically, there'll be a site that comes along that's scraping Southwest, just pulling it off their site without their permission, and generally their response is a lawsuit that they win. So,
wow.
Yeah. Airlines, it's tough business.
But so that's kind of interesting because it's safe and public and common to hate your cable company. Mm-hmm. Everyone hates Comcast.
Yep.
It's safe and comfortable and common to hate your cell phone company, but people don't hate airlines in that same way. It sounds like maybe they should.
I think a lot of them do.
Oh,
oh yeah. I mean, the movement from the airlines has been really to charge for everything and to give people less and less, right? So they make the seats closer and closer together, but then they'll give you more legroom for a fee, right? They'll tell you that you can't bring a bag that's more than a certain weight. You have to check it on board the plane. You can't bring it as a carry-on. But then they'll charge you for checking it. So they play all these sorts of games, and if you happen to be someone who travels a lot, like I do, and I imagine that you do too, you're somewhat immune to these things because you have some status with the airline. And that means that they kind of don't force all of those nickel and diming things on you. But if you don't, if you fly once or twice a year, then you're hitting every single one of these, and your flight might end up costing twice as much once you add in all the extra fees.
Wow, I guess I have it in my head that after 9/11 and the airlines were all just like hemorrhaging money, and the flights were flying empty, we all felt sorry for them, right?
And we should have, yeah. I mean, because they were really struggling back then. In fact, they got bailed out basically by the government. These days, they are making so much money. I mean, so there's all these mergers, and the way that the airline justified it was, we need to merge because we're losing money, right? And this will help us become profitable. They merged up, and then, lucky for them, oil prices fell by half.
Oh.
But their fares didn't come down, right?
Oh.
Because why would they? There's less competition. So now they've got all this concentration. A lot of them monopolize a bunch of their routes, and they've got cheap oil. It's like, how can life get any better for the airlines?
Wow.
Yeah.
Sounds like you aren't in love with these guys.
Well, I use them all the time. I think they're a wonderful public service, and I'm glad that we work with as many as we do. I think, though, that ultimately what's best for consumers may not be the same as what's best for the airlines, right? And that's why you see the government occasionally stepping in to regulate things, or forcing them to have the not hold people on the tarmac for longer than a certain amount of time, all that stuff.
Right. Well, so getting back to Southwest, why would they not want their one-click ability to buy a ticket spread as far and wide as possible? What do they make more money?
I have no idea. I think you should go ask them, because we've wondered the same thing.
Coming tomorrow on Yahoo Technics, the CEO of Southwest. So would they make more money if you go to southwest.com and buy there? Then is it they resent paying you the couple of bucks?
I don't know.
Wow.
It's just they've never made any exceptions to this. There are other companies that have. So there were other companies that were in the same boat. Think of companies in Europe like Ryanair or EasyJet, companies that historically thought of themselves as like the Southwest of other countries. And all of them have changed their mind and started working with middlemen to get their flights out to more people. Southwest has kept the religion going.
So the $20 million investment you got, right? And that's not the first time you've had a big...
That's right.
So before
that, there was a seed round. We went through Y Combinator's sort of an early stage incubator, and then we did a Series A round, which was $1 million. And then, the seed round was $1 million. The Series A was $4 million.
It must be tough to keep all these multi-million-dollar checks straight.
Then we did a B round, which was $15 million, and then our C round, which was 20 more.
Okay.
So it's been about $40 million to date.
And what do you do with all that? Because you're still small, right?
Yeah, I mean, we've been hiring. That's been the biggest thing that we've been spending money on. So we said, if we wanted to wait for, all of these users to hear about Hipmunk and then for us to hire, we could be profitable, but why wait if we know what we want to achieve? So we're about 60 people now. And when you're hiring really talented people in San Francisco, that's really expensive.
Yeah. Okay, so you went to MIT, and what did you study there?
I did a double major in electrical engineering and computer science and mechanical engineering.
Okay, so you're not using your electrical engineering skills at all.
No.
And probably as the CEO, you're doing mostly like management and financial stuff, right?
Yep.
So you're really not using your computer skills at all.
No.
So on the other hand, you are having to learn about the flight industry, the travel industry, and by the way, he's encyclopedic on these topics. You got to get him started over dinner. And the whole investment thing and startups. Where does one pick up the information one needs for those kinds of things?
Well, I think it's from trying and then making mistakes. When we first started, we didn't know anything about the airline industry at all, other than from what we knew as consumers. We didn't know how money changed hands. We didn't know whether the airlines would like us or hate us. We didn't know any of this stuff. But we started with a very clear idea of what we wanted the result to be, which is we wanted to build a product that we would prefer to use over anything else. And then we just figured out at every step what it would take to get there. Now, I think part of this comes from ignorance. If we'd known how much the airlines hate middlemen, if we'd known, that actually most of the money in the travel industry comes from hotels, not from flights, we probably would have done things differently in that first few years. We probably would have told ourselves we were crazy to start it, truthfully. But not knowing that, we had to force ourselves to learn. So we talked to a lot of people, talked to investors, talked to people from companies like Expedia who'd left, talked to anyone we could, and then tried to do it and saw how far we could get before we got shut down, and then just kept trying.
And why would any of these people, especially the Expedias, talk to you?
Well, keep in mind, these are people who are long gone from companies like Expedia and Priceline and whatever. And these days, they look for interesting new opportunities to invest or advise or whatever. So we're very fortunate. A lot of them were local to San Francisco, so we could just get coffee with them. And Silicon Valley is a place where there's a lot of importance on reputation and helping people. You don't get very far by saying, no, get lost. You get far by saying, well, I actually know someone who might be able to help you with that, and then it sort of builds on itself.
Now, speaking of hotels, I've never actually used Hipmunk's hotel search. Can you give us a 30-second demo?
You bet. So where do you want to go, David?
I'd like to go to Cancun.
Cancun.
Since it's not a real trip and I'm not going to have to actually pay for it.
All right, let's give you one night in Cancun. Just
cheapskate.
Yeah. So the thing about hotels on most sites is that really it's just hotels. But on Hipmunk, we search not just traditional hotels, but also vacation rentals. And we show them to you side by side. So
you mean like Airbnb type things?
So you can see here we've got number 1 is the Marriott, number 2 is an Airbnb, number 3 is a HomeAway.
Whoa.
Number 4 is another Airbnb, and so on.
Whoa.
We're the only site in the US that shows all of these things together. So we also get deals from lots of different places. So for the Airbnb, obviously, there's only one place you can book that, which is Airbnb. For this Marriott, we've got multiple different options. So we compare the prices from all these different places. And with all 4 of these, you can book on Hipmunk without leaving, which is really convenient. Or if you'd prefer, you can leave and book somewhere else. And you can see that there are different prices for each of these things. In addition to being able to see all this stuff, we also take into account where it is that you're looking. So if you zoom out, if you're really interested in the whole general Cancun area, then we'll show you hotels that are a little bit outside the center. If you're really interested in this particular section of beach right here, then we'll show you the ones that are on that section. We've also got this cool feature called heat maps. And heat maps basically take a look at the concentration of business types. So these are the hotspots of food in Cancun. Here are the hotspots of nightlife. I'm not sure how good our nightlife data is in Cancun.
It's a sleepy town.
Yeah, right. But we pick this, we're constantly improving the data quality on this stuff so that we can show you even more information about where the best places are to stay for what you need. And if you had a meeting scheduled in Cancun, we would automatically show it on the map here. Like automatically when you run the search, we would pull it in from your calendar and say, we see that you have a meeting scheduled in Cancun, and we would show it to you, and you could search the hotels that are right near that.
Wow. Yeah. So how would you know my calendar?
Well, you'd have to give us access to it.
Okay.
It's not like we steal it.
How do you do, how do you do that? Is it?
Yeah. So you log in. So right now.
Like, would it work with like my iCloud calendar?
If you sync that with your Google Calendar, yes.
Okay, so it's Google's calendar that you work
at the moment, yeah. We actually support a few more that we're going to be rolling out soon.
So the hotel, you said, hotel booking is much more lucrative than the flight booking.
Yes.
So you're really hoping this catches on.
Absolutely, and it is. Yeah, I mean, hotels are our fastest growing business by far, and a lot of it's being driven by people booking on their phones. So one of the most interesting trends in travel over the last few years has been people are waiting until the absolute last minute to book hotels. They're showing up in a city and saying, what's a good deal? And the thing is, hotels, unlike airlines, actually have a lot of competition. Think of where you could stay in Las Vegas or Cancun. I mean, there's dozens of places that you'd probably be perfectly fine staying in. And so the hotels are starting to discount a lot. at the last minute, and they're offering even better discounts if you book on your phone. So this is not an exaggeration. If you did the exact same search for today, for hotels for tonight, on your phone or on your computer, you'd see lower prices for the same hotels on your phone. And we pull in this information from dozens of different sources so that we can give you the best deals. And so that's where a lot of the hotel bookings are coming from.
Wow. Give us some more travel tips like that. What else have you learned from the insider's viewpoint?
Well, one of the things that's really interesting is that people often neglect these alternatives, right? So Airbnbs versus HomeAways versus hotels. Another one is trains versus planes. That's a really obvious one, but a lot of people, even in the Northeast, just assume, okay, well, if I have to travel, I'm going to search on a flight site. What we do is we actually pull in Amtrak results too. So you can compare them side by side, if it's a route where it makes sense. We're not going to show you the cross-country Amtrak train. You could book that. But if you're searching for, New York to Boston or for Seattle to Portland or whatever, we'll show you the trains on those routes too.
But you have access to these massive databases of flight information, right? Where are you getting them? Where are you pulling in all the?
Everywhere. So we work with these databases, right? So big companies like ITA and Sabre and Amadeus. These are basically database companies that have algorithms that search all this stuff. We work directly with airlines, train companies, hotels, rental companies, travel agencies. So we work with everyone, and then we have a whole team that basically takes all of this data and merges it into a standard format so that you don't see 10 Marriott Casa Magnas. You see one with 10 prices.
Gotcha. So aren't you in a position to be able to parse this data yourself and conclude things like this is how many days in advance of a flight you'll typically get the best deal?
Yes. And so we don't surface all of that stuff at the moment because getting it wrong is very bad. If you say to someone, hey, this flight price is going to come down, and then it goes up, then they hate you forever. Right? What we've done instead is we've given people the ability to hold flights. And so this is a new feature that we've been rolling out over the past few months. And it's not on all flights at the moment, but you'll see it on more and more. If you feel like, hey, this is a pretty good price, but I'm not yet ready to commit, for a lot of flights, you can actually pay a small fee to lock that price in for a week. And then you can choose to come back later and buy it or not at that price. Even if it goes up, you can lock in the lower, earlier price. So that's one of the other ways that we're trying to help people thread this whole airline pricing game.
The airlines are offering that feature?
No. A couple airlines offer it on their own sites.
Right.
But we're offering it sort of as a service on top of multiple different
Well, what
airlines.
happens if I'm booking my company of 50 people and I hold it and the price goes up? You guys pay the difference?
No, so firstly, you can't put 50 people on a single reservation.
Oh.
We work with a partner that basically has built an options pricing model. It's called Options Away. So they basically have this bunch of finance guys who sit in a room and build predictive models like they were pricing, wheat futures or pork belly, futures or something, but they're pricing airline prices. And so they know how much to charge to protect the risk, and then they deal with the situations where the price goes up or down.
Wow, I had no idea that was going on. So how many days in advance should I book my flight?
Well, if you're booking, this is the advice that I give to my family and to my friends. I say, you should book as far enough in advance as you can, assuming that you are sure you're going to go. So if you're, some people say book 12 months in advance. Well, a lot can happen in 12 months, right? Maybe you get sick, maybe, you have to go to a wedding, maybe, all sorts of things can happen in that period of time. So I never book stuff 12 months in advance because even if I end up saving $50, there's a good chance I'm going to have to cancel it, and that's going to cost $200. Instead, I typically book, 2 months out or so when I'm traveling, for just a vacation. That's close enough in that I feel like I know what my schedule is going to be like, but it's also far enough out that I'm not being penalized by the absolute, this ridiculous last-minute fares.
So there's not a standard curve for a certain ticket, like I read somewhere that like 52 days before the flight is the optimal. Is that
so these things at a moment in time, there's always going to be a time that makes the most sense. But the airlines are also constantly tweaking their algorithms. if they see that all of a sudden there's a big jump in people booking 52 days out, their algorithm's going to adjust and make it so actually now it's 60 days out, or 40 days, you know, whatever. So they want to make as much money as possible. That's all you need to know about it, and they're going to do whatever they can. So, and that's no surprise, right? You would too if you were the airlines, I think. But that's why I say the reason that they charge more at the last minute is because most of the people traveling at the last minute are business travelers. And they know that business travelers can afford to pay whatever it takes. So the less you look like a business traveler, the lower your fare is going to be. And that's why they do things like, you know, if you stay over on a Saturday night, you often get a lower fare, because what business traveler in their right mind is going to stay over on a Saturday night after they had a meeting, you know?
Yeah, when I was growing up, that's what everyone always said. Yeah, book over Saturday night. So how else can I look like not a bit? If I wear a T-shirt and cutoffs, will I get a look?
Yeah, I don't know that that'll work.
So what is the next step for the evolution? Car rentals?
Yeah, well, so we'll be adding more verticals, you know, car rentals and packages and all that stuff over time. We want to make sure that people can come to Hipmunk and get anything that they want. So it's comprehensiveness within a category, so hotels and rentals and, you know, and apartments and all that. It's also comprehensiveness across different categories so that people can come to us for flights and hotels and cars and everything, and then do it on all devices. So there's multiple dimensions to this.
And how do you do that without junking it all up until you look like Expedia?
Well, that's the challenge, right? So we try to do things seamlessly so that you don't even need to opt in or click anything for it to work. So to give you an example, if you start searching on your phone and then you come to the website, we will have your searches remembered from your phone. And you didn't have to click save this search on my phone. It just happened automatically, assuming you were logged in. Likewise for hotels and for everything else, if you start your search on the web and you search on your phone, it'll say, oh, we saw that you were searching this. You know, do you want to search that here? And this is like what Apple announced with the, what do they call the seamless kind of...
Yeah, handoff.
Handoff, yeah. Except we did it 6 months earlier and it works for Macs and PCs.
So while you've got the site open, here's what's always happening for me. I'm always trying to figure out an itinerary, and I do a search, and that's fine. Now I want to say, now what would happen if I, instead of JFK, if I flew from LaGuardia?
Right.
And then what would happen if I shifted, if I returned Saturday instead of Sunday? Mm-hmm. So what's the best way to do that without losing my place?
Yeah, so we support these tabs. You can see these here. So if you've got a tab, you search for New York to Las Vegas on these particular dates, and you'll notice that this is a saved search. You know, this is a search you did before, but it's saved here, so I can click it to rerun it.
Right.
Once this search loads, you can click Edit Search, and you can enter a different destination. And if you do, let's say instead of all of New York City, you just want to search for LaGuardia, that's fine. You just click that, and when you click Search, it'll open it in a new tab so you can click back and forth between these two.
I see.
And then if you have, you know, if you want to do flexible dates, we've got these plus minuses. You can search multiple days after, you know, up to 2 days later. You can search 2 days earlier, you know, whatever you want. You can mix and match these things. You can also type out specific airports. So if you just want to search for LaGuardia and JFK, you can just type them out in a list.
Can you use commas?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's very cool. You know what frustrates me, Adam?
What?
I always want to see my flight results sorted by departure time, because I always want to go to a certain time, and Hipmunk will not remember my preference.
Yes, we will soon.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's something we're working on. Yeah, because the trick is that some people, they just want to see the particular flights sorted by departure, and other people want to sort that way every time.
Right.
You know, so got to make it so that people. You don't want to confuse people, and they're saying, well, why is this flight shown first when it's 5 times more expensive? It's like, because you told us you wanted to sort by departure time 2 weeks ago.
Right. I see. Okay, now suppose I really love this Spirit flight with the 4-hour layover, the second one there.
Okay.
So when I click that, do I say select leg? So do I buy it here, or do I go off to the Spirit site to book it?
You can. So in this case,
Don't do it.
No, that's fine. In this case, you would do it through Cheapo Air. That's who we're getting this flight from. It depends very much on who the airline is. So if you're looking at this, say this American flight, this one is actually an American and U.S. Airways combination. It's bookable on U.S. Airways. There might be an American-US Airways combination that's bookable on American or on some, so it all depends on which flight you pick.
I see. And if I find out that there's a great flight here, and then I go to that website, the airline's website, and buy it, you don't get anything from that, do you?
Oh, you mean if you didn't click on Hipmunk?
Yeah.
If you just close the window and then.
Right.
Yeah. No, we don't get anything.
Okay. Well, you're reading my calendar, so I thought maybe you are all hooked up. All right. If anyone has any questions, I'll give you 30 seconds to think them up. And I have one last question for you, which is, in the Silicon Valley thing, like your co-founder Steve, he had done Reddit, right?
Yes.
Is he now still at Reddit, or?
No, he's at Hipmunk. That's his
He's
job.
at Hipmunk.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have these serial entrepreneur things, right? In Silicon Valley, it's just unbelievable. I know guys who are now at Yahoo, who are at Yahoo for the third time, right? People shift around.
Yes.
So are you a true blue Hipmunker? This is your baby for life. You're Bill Gates. Or is this too a stepping stone?
Well, I don't know where Hipmunk's going to end up. Our aspiration is for it to be the world's best travel site, and we're still probably 10 years from that. I mean, that's how long it takes in the online travel world. We're really very focused on US travelers right now, for example. We don't support other languages. We don't support more than 5 total currencies out of the 100 in the world. So there's just a tremendous amount of work to do to get there. If we can get there, then maybe it makes sense to say, okay, great, check the box, made travel better for hundreds of millions of people, time to do something new. But that's such a remote possibility at the moment that we just, all of us, Steve and I, and all of the other people who've been with us since the beginning, we're just grinding along to get there.
You've got $20 million rotting in the bank. What are you waiting for?
Well, there's a tension always in Silicon Valley between spending everything you've got and then being at the whims of the market versus being cautious and taking your time. And we've picked an intermediate path and said, we're going to invest to get there, but we also don't want to find ourselves in a position where if all of a sudden there's some terrible plane crash, and people are spooked and no one's buying for a few months, we don't want to go out of business in that scenario.
Right.
So that's why we keep a lot of it as a cushion.
Gotcha. Makes sense. All right. Any questions for Adam before we wrap up? Yes.
From a user experience, which airlines do you think are doing the best and the worst job?
Which airlines are doing the best and worst jobs from a user experience?
So here's the problem, right? Our contracts with the airlines say that we can't pick favorites.
Oh, come on.
Yeah. No, it's true.
There's no one here but this room.
Right.
Come on.
No, I'm sorry. I'll say I'll tell you the things I like on planes, and you can look on Hipmunk and you can see. I cannot live without Wi-Fi on flights, and I never thought I'd say that because I always viewed flights as like this is my time to relax and I can work offline. Well, when you're running a company, relaxing is actually being online, not worrying about who's trying to reach you. So that's something. I mean, I think every airline that's putting that on their regular planes, their international planes, and then even their little mini jets that they fly short distances, I think that's great. Power on planes, that's another one, especially for long flights. And any time that I can get extra legroom, that's another plus. A lot of the airlines have started offering that on all of their flights. Somewhere in between coach and business class, they've got like a premium economy. I think that's a wonderful idea too.
So can we go back to the site? So
Sure.
What of that information is identified here? I see the Wi-Fi
Yeah,
logo.
so we show Wi-Fi as our prominent thing because that's what the overwhelming majority of users want. If we were to show Wi-Fi, power, legroom, you wouldn't be able to tell which airline it was. But we're designing new ways to show that stuff so that it's not.
If you point at it, will I see if there's power?
Not at the moment, but that's stuff that we're
How about
working
meals? Will I see if there's a meal?
on. No, not on Hipmunk, but you will see it when you click through.
Okay,
Yeah,
something for you to work on.
yeah.
So what do I see when I point to play?
So when you point on this flight, you can see the departure time, the arrival time. You can see the total time at the top, and then this little hover bar shows you the flights that it matches up with. So this outbound flight can be matched up with all of these return flights. You can see there's lots at different times of day.
Oh, I see.
Right, and this solves the problem of, number one, having to show every single permutation on a single screen, which is why our competitors have 40 pages of results. And it also solves the problem of, hey, I like this outbound flight, but what if the flight I like isn't pairable with it, which happens actually pretty often.
So this box shows the returns
Yes.
options for that one flight.
Correct.
I have not, did
It's
not
a
even
new
know that.
design. We just rolled this out.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Just in time for your interview.
Yep.
Anyway, well, I'm a Hipmunk. Where does the name Hipmunk come from?
So the name Hipmunk comes from basically the fact that we couldn't find any domain names that had to do with travel that we could afford. You know, when we were just two guys in my living room, we was like, well, what? We can't buy something that costs millions of dollars, and everything travel related costs millions of dollars. So we started hunting for alternatives, couldn't find any ones that we liked. And then I mentioned this dilemma to my girlfriend, and she said, you know, you should just find the name of a small animal so that you can get a cute mascot. Okay. I mean, it was like that flippant of a suggestion, but a brilliant insight, because I started looking for small animal names, and the correctly spelled versions were obviously all taken. But the misspellings, Hipmunk was available for auction, and there had been no bids, and the auction was closing in like 72 hours. So I put in the minimum bid, which was $70, and was the only bidder. So we won Hipmunk, and we said, that's actually not a bad idea. And then we got a friend of ours, actually Steve's co-founder from Reddit, drew our Hipmunk, just like he drew the Reddit alien. And we haven't looked back since.
Wow, it's that flippant, that whimsical?
That was it.
Wow, well anyway, I wish you the best of luck. You've done a fantastic thing for this category of site. It's the only one I use, and it's not because I know you.
Thank you.
So thanks for joining us today, Adam.
Sure.
Thank you for
Thanks.
joining us.